This week's episode of the And She Looked Up podcast is brought to you by our premium subscriber community on Patreon and Buzzsprout. Their ongoing financial support of the show ensures I can continue to bring the podcast to you. Want to help out? Head over to patreon.com/And She Looked Up. That's Patreon, patreon.com/And She Looked Up. There you can join the community for free, or you can choose to be a premium supporter for $4.50 a month, and that's in Canadian dollars. Paid supporters get access to a monthly exclusive podcast episode only available to premium subscribers. You can also click the Support the Show link in the episode notes on your podcast player to support us via Buzzsprout, where you will also get access to each month's exclusive premium supporter episode. I can't tell you how much I appreciate all our monthly supporters. They are the engine that keeps the podcast running, and they're a pretty cool bunch too. And now, let's get on with the show. Welcome to the And She Looked Up podcast. Each week, we sit down with inspiring Canadian women who create for a living. We talk about their creative journeys and their best business tips, as well as the creative and business mindset issues all creative entrepreneurs struggle with. I'm your host, Melissa Hartfield, and after leaving a 20-year career in corporate retail, I've been happily self-employed for 12 years. I'm a graphic designer, an illustrator, and a multi-six-figure-a-year entrepreneur in the digital content space. This podcast is for the artists, the makers, and the creatives who want to find a way to make a living doing what they love. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the And She Looked Up podcast. As always, I am your host, Melissa, and today's episode is the final episode of season 5 before we head out onto our summer hiatus that we do every year. And that means that Heather Travis is here today. Hello, Heather.
Hello, Melissa. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Good. We were just talking before we came on the air how it feels like it's been ages since we talked, but I don't think it has been. And
No.
yeah, time is just going by at a very fast rate.
Yes. Yes.
So in today's episode, we are going to be talking about embracing rest and why that is so important as working creatives. But it seemed like an appropriate episode to end the season on, seeing as we are going into a hiatus to have some rest. But before we dive into that, we have a couple of housekeeping things to go through. So the first thing is, if you're new around here, we go on a hiatus every summer for June, July, and August, and just to take a bit of a break. And if you are a premium subscriber to the podcast, so on Patreon or Buzzsprout, I will still be putting out your monthly premium episodes each month. So you'll still be getting a new episode in June, July, and August. If you are not a premium subscriber, but you would like to get those summer episodes, you can head over to patreon.com/And She Looked Up and become a subscriber, and you'll get access to those episodes as well. And you can just subscribe for the summer months. If you just want those summer episodes, you can subscribe for the summer months and then drop out at the end of August if you prefer. And if you become a premium subscriber, you will get access to all the back episodes of the show. So I think there's over a year's worth of them now over there. So you can go check those out. And if you're on Buzzsprout, you'll still get access to the premium episodes as well. So there is that. You can also head over to our website. I'll still be sending emails out through the summer. If you're not subscribed to our newsletter, you can head over to andshelookedup.com and subscribe, and you will get our freebie 25 non-salesy ways to email your newsletter list specifically for creatives. And if you are not emailing your list, now's the time to get started, because I came across a really interesting stat. Heather, we were just talking about email before we started recording, but I came across a stat. I can't remember where it is, but people who hear from you regularly through Q1 and through and Q2 of the year via your email newsletter are far more likely, and I can't remember the number, but it's a big number, to purchase from you in Q4 when
Oh, wow.
yeah. So if
Huh.
you I think that's a really good indication of how long it takes to warm people up to
Yes.
purchase from
Wow.
you. So
Wow.
if you are not emailing your list, but you have the holiday season on your brain already, which a lot of us probably do, now is the time that you probably want to get into that habit of sending them an email once a week or once every 2 weeks just to say hi. And so if you're looking for ways that you can do that, yeah, sign up for our newsletter and you'll get access to that whole list. And I think actually that list was based on a podcast episode that we did. So I believe I will find the episode number and put it in the show notes, but you can also listen to the episode to get those 25 ways. It's a long episode, so just depends on how long you want to listen or whether you want to read. So, with that, I think that's all the housekeeping for this month. The other thing I would just love to say is we were discussing what season 6 will look like in September, and I would love to hear from any of you, whether you hit me up on Instagram DMs or send me an email at andshelookedup@gmail.com or however. I would love to hear from you, uh, your feedback on the show and what you would like to see more of, what you would like to see less of, and what it is you enjoy about the show, so that as we start to plan out season 6, which we start doing in July. I mean, we go on hiatus, but we're still working on the show. So, um, but yeah, if you could drop us a note, we'd love to hear from you and maybe put some of your suggestions into action. It would be great to hear from you all. So let's get on to today's topic, which, as I mentioned, is about embracing rest. And this was actually suggested to me by a former guest, Panita Chitwal Varma, who has been on the show
Hmm.
3 times. I think we recorded with
And
her
her
as
new
a
book's out.
yes. I was just going to mention that. If you've been listening to the show, you've heard Panita on previous podcasts. She helped me out when after Lisa left, she came on and guest hosted for a few episodes, and we did an episode with Heather as well, where we talked about how to make your business more environmentally sustainable.
Hmm.
And she has a brand new book that has just come out. It's called Good Food, Healthy Planet. And it is a cookbook, but it is so much more than a cookbook. It is
Like a
packed.
lifestyle guide.
Mm. It is packed with ways that you can eat better, both for yourself and for the planet, and more ways to eat more sustainably.
Hmm.
And she's got so much info in there. It's packed with how to revamp your pantry, and all of it is very small changes that are very easy to make. So it's not like to eat better for the planet, we have to radically change what we're doing. She's broken it down into small ways that we can make changes that add up to big change. And it's a great book if you want to check it out. But this episode was actually her idea, and she suggested it. And the moment she sent it to me, it resonated with me immediately. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
Heather, when I suggested it to you,
Yep.
you also had quite a reaction to it. So I felt like, yeah, this is probably a good episode to end the season on.
Hmm.
So,
Perfect.
yes. So let's talk about rest. So Heather, you wrapped up a big solo exhibition at the end of December. It was
Hmm.
an exhibition that ran from September through December, so it was almost 4 full months. And that was just the finishing energy of the project.
Yes. Yep.
This is a project that you were working on for years. And yeah, let's talk about what
Hmm.
happened when you wrapped it all up. Your exhibition ended on December 31st. So it was like the end of the
Yep.
year and the end of the exhibition. And all
Yes.
of a sudden, you were done. So
Done.
there's lots of ways we could talk about how you felt about the end of the exhibition, but how did you feel from an energy
Oh.
perspective? Like,
It was really interesting because, I had to have the art finished by May, the previous May. I moved everything in, but I still was finishing like framing and doing so much stuff for the exhibition that even though the creation process was technically done, it wasn't really done until I handed everything in, so to speak. And then even when I did hand everything in, I was then working at the contract job that I took. And so part of that was an almost immediate forced rest or forced break from my existing schedule, which was work from home, put on paint covered jeans and a Rolling Stones t-shirt as I am today, and then just work from home, freelance work, artwork, whatever. And so that was an immediate break. But then when the exhibition wrapped up at the end of December, we had like a Christmas break and then we picked up the artwork. My husband helped me, and it was like the first week of January, picking everything up. And as we discussed, nothing, no physical artwork sold. I sold a boatload of prints, but I didn't sell any of the artwork. So I had to bring it all home and put it in the studio. And that honestly was a little not deflating because I'm incredibly proud of what I did. And I know the artwork was well received. And I have since sold quite a number of pieces. However, bringing it all back in here was not something I intended on. And so the forced rest of work and the kind of unwillingness to come into my studio for just a little bit. Uh, Plus, it was the dead of winter. I use that as a good excuse, but it was kind of nice to just nest and not be in the studio. Yeah.
So was it the fact that all the artwork was back in the studio that made you not want to go in there? Is that,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it was seeing the big pile and being like, wow, look at what I did. Still very proud of myself.
Hmm.
But like, what do I do now? But what do I do now?
Right.
I have lots of ideas, and I have been making notes. Like, I think that's the beauty of what I've allowed myself. And this is where I did have to have a conversation with myself, particularly as this is a really big space in our house. And, we don't have a huge house. This takes up a lot of space. If I am not using this productively, there's lots of other things we could do with this room that would be super fun for both of us. And so I had to say to myself, if you're not going to do this, like if you're not going to move on to another project, if you're not ready for that, which is totally okay, you can noodle it, you can brainstorm things, but you need to continue to do something creative. You can't just like close the room up and put a sheet over it.
Hmm.
And so one of the things that I really challenged myself was I looked back on the exhibition process and actually thought to myself, what was it about that I really relished? And the one thing that I mean, I loved the whole process, but I loved that I gave myself the opportunity to experiment. And so, because of the grant, I was able to purchase different paints, different products. I afforded myself the time to kind of fuck around within that process. And that was really awesome. And so, why not give that to myself again with no direction? Just just the opportunity to play. And so kind of taking a lesson from myself and Shart, honestly, like just let a little Shart out and have fun. And uh, it's been really gratifying. Like I have actually sold a couple of commissions that have been the result of sort of experimental play. The person who commissioned something just said, I want you to have fun. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna have some fun. Um, and I did, and it was awesome. And they purchased it, which is delightful. Um, and so my play has yielded artistic results. I've also, there's canvases turned around behind me that are thinking about what they've done because they that's the way I always like to think about it is that,
You think about it. You sit in the corner and
you
think
just
about
sit in the corner and exactly, you think about what you've done, and then we'll come back and we'll play again later, when you behave. And so whether that's, wasn't in the mood, whatever, and I'm okay with that. It still does bother me that there are paintings in here that are unsold. There are quite a number of them. So I have talked about this many times before. I have a habit of painting over old paintings. If I don't feel for it anymore, if it just hasn't sold in a bunch of time and I need that canvas size and I'm sort of indifferent, I'll paint over it. Um, I don't want to diminish the art in any way by saying that, but at the same time, like reduce, reuse, recycle if it's not selling. I don't know. And so I am having that conversation with myself right now. Are there things that I want to, but I'm not going to force that. I'm thinking of having another studio sale. That's something that the rest has allowed me to do, is that I had a studio open house and sale. And so I just kind of hung around the studio for the day and let people know, email subscribers, Instagram people. And I did put a big old sign out in front of my house. And so that was breaking from tradition. That was breaking from, I think that's part of rest for me is experimentation and play. Uh, and doing different things. At the same time, like there's a bench behind me, a girlfriend commissioned me, actually is commissioning me to redo, and it's been sitting there since like January. I just have not been in the mood. Every time I go to tackle it, I'm like, me. She knows that, totally cool. Whenever she sees me is when she sees me. It's no big deal. She's getting the friends and family discount anyway, so it's not like it's a I just, you know what I mean? Like supplies are being paid for kind of thing. So
Yeah.
whatever. But that to me is what rest allows, is the opportunity to let creativity take a lead as opposed to the business. And I think right now, because I have the job, I have the financial luxury of not forcing the business side as much.
Yeah.
So,
You mentioned several very interesting things in there that we could go follow, little threads that we could follow. I think you mentioned, first of all, that one of the first things you said is that the contract position you took was forced rest. And I thought
yeah.
that was an interesting way to refer to it because I mean you took the contract job, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it was basically, you'd spent 18 months painting with no
Hmm.
real revenue coming in, and the contract job was meant
Hmm.
to help fill up the coffers.
Yeah,
Um, and so you took it, I guess, I don't want to say out of necessity, but there was a practical reason for it. Um,
absolutely.
yeah, and
Adulting.
you were being a grown up, exactly. We have to
Yeah.
do that sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, when you went into that situation, did it feel restful to you to like do something that is completely different and in some ways very structured? Because you went back into, you're working for a nonprofit, I believe, right? That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't want
Yeah.
to use the word corporate environment, but it's a structured environment, a structured business
It is a
environment.
structured environment. Like it's a 9 to 5 office. We take
Yeah.
lunch and sit around a boardroom table, and it very much is like, there's the office Jim, and like it's Jim and Pam and Steve Carell, and like we have the
Mhm.
whole cast of characters. Of beautiful, honestly, truly beautiful humans. I think that's one of the rare things that I have found in this opportunity, just to dwell on that for a second, is a spectacular group of humans. Who I thoroughly enjoy getting to spend time with. And I think so, yes, forced rest, but interestingly, because I haven't been in a quote corporate environment in so like almost a decade, um, the opportunity to thrive in a workplace, particularly for such a noble and interesting cause where I'm learning, but also using all of my skills, like and you talk about it on the podcast. There is so much creativity in writing. There is so much creativity in graphic design and creating materials and websites and advertising and different promotional, like all of the things that I do at work. Like one of the things that I would did this morning was worked on a mini movie with a script, and I recorded audio that's going to be played in front of a local movie. And that's in promotion for the business and for our community. And so I am being creative in such a different but really regular way, which is very contrasting. And I think, yeah, so I've been flexing creative bones, but I just haven't been doing it covered in paint.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's also nice. I think the act of doing something that uses a completely different part of your brain or uses your brain in a
Yeah.
different way
Yeah.
can be very can be restful, whether it's
Yes.
and I think when you go to work for someone else, they're also making all the decisions. Like you're told what your day is going to be like, essentially. Or
Yes.
maybe not, maybe you're not that directed, but you know somebody else is deciding what is important for you to do. And sometimes
Yes.
there's something very nice about that. It's like I think the thing that I can relate it to that we can probably all relate to
Mm.
is the idea of having to come up with something for dinner every single freaking night, right? And sometimes
Yes.
it's just nice for somebody else to say, this is what we're having for dinner. And you don't have to think about it. Like it's just
Totally.
like you
Yes.
just want a break from figuring out what we're going to have for dinner.
Totally. And that's the funny thing. And I think and honestly, that's exactly to continue that exact analogy. Shart, lots of people give that feedback that you've just given me permission to release something and given me, I just needed the idea.
Yes.
You gave it to me and now I can execute. And the creativity that I get at work, like quite literally, Heather, we need a brochure made. Okay. Like I'm literally like a puppy with bright eyes. I'm like, perfect. I'll pop into Canva and make us a brochure.
Yeah.
That's
They're
delightful.
telling you they need a brochure, but at the same
Yep.
time, they're saying this is what the brochure is for. This is what
Yep.
the goal of the brochure is for. This is what we need people
Exactly.
to. This is what
It's
the,
so clear.
like you just get to make it look pretty, and as long as it
Totally.
hits all the points, right? It's
Yes.
yes, it's one. I always joke one of the worst things a client can say to me is like, "Do whatever you want. I give you carte
Oh, no,
blanche."
no.
You're just like, no, no. You need to put some. You need to put some
Correct.
boundaries in, please.
Correct. And it's so funny because one of the things that when I started, even in terms of boundaries, and I mean, we talk about brand, but one of the things was setting boundaries in terms of like making brand structure so that I actually gave myself my own boxes
Hmm.
and said, you didn't have this in place. You need this in place. Here's what it is. And now I'm going to go forward
Yeah.
and like made myself the perfect little sandbox to execute within creatively and yeah, and it was very different. And I still come to the studio I come up into my studio now every weekend and noodle around, whether it's for Chart or just to play on a canvas. Like I still have fun, but I've also been having fun doing other things, spray painting furniture, doing different activities. I cleaned up my pantry last weekend. It was really I don't know. Like there's different things that just give me joy, and I'm kind of using the opportunity that I don't need. Like I still have lots of artwork for sale. And so the potential for dollars is there. Um, I have some small passive sources of income and a couple collaborations, but that, you know, mm,
I
I
think
think it's okay to I don't know. I don't feel like if you're creative, you can be creative all the time. Like when people release an album, they take time between albums to make the next one.
exactly. We have talked about this one particular example on the show so many times, and it came from photographer David Duchemin. I talk about it all the time. It's the whole
Yes.
the wave theory,
Wave.
right?
Yeah.
And you rode the wave in.
Hmm.
The exhibition was that final push into shore,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
On the wave, and you
Yeah.
rode it through, you finished up, and there you were standing on the beach, and
Hmm.
the exhibition was finished, and you'd taken all the paintings back to your studio. And so now you're at the stage where you're paddling back out into the water, and you're just hanging out on your surfboard waiting for the next wave
Hmm.
to come because you know it's going to come,
Totally.
right? This is
Yep.
the thing, and this
Yes.
is where we have to trust how the wave process
Yes.
works. Another wave always comes. It might not be
Yeah.
as big. It might not. It might take a while. The waters could be very calm for a bit, but
Hmm.
it's going to come. Like
Yes.
just how it works. And
Yep.
so that period of landing on the beach and paddling back out and waiting for the next wave, that's the rest period,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
And you can do while you're sitting out there on your surfboard, you can you could chat with the other surfers. Hey,
Yep.
what are you doing this summer? Like,
Exactly.
and kind of get a sense of what other people are doing out there, or
Yes.
have little conversations. And then eventually you'll be sitting there and then you'll see in the distance, you're like, hey, it's coming. The next one's
Hmm.
coming, and
Yeah.
I'm ready for it. I am ready
Yeah.
because I've been sitting here on my surfboard relaxing and chilling, and I am ready to ride this wave.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a great metaphor. That's why I go back to it all the time,
Oh,
because it
totally.
really works for what we
Totally.
do.
Yes.
And
And the metaphor can like you have to be ready for it. And I think that's the thing. Like, so I mean, you said it earlier, just because you're on a break from the podcast doesn't mean that the work stops. Like the rest is different and you're doing different things. And so I have been taking inventory of my paints and canvases. Part of my debate on painting over canvases is involved in that. I want to make sure that I have a prepped studio so that when I am like, this is the idea, I have ideas that I've been noodling and
yes,
concepts that and like when I am ready to go,
there's
I
nothing
need to
worse.
go.
Yes.
And exactly, like I need to be ready to go. Ugh, like prep work is one of my least favorite things. Like when I go to paint a bedroom or do a mural, I want to just put paint on the wall. The fact that I have to move furniture out of the way, vacuum the baseboards, dust the thing, blah, 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 blah. Ah,
The
I
stuff the
just
world
want to do
doesn't
the
see.
thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I need to force myself to prep and get everything ready. And part of that is getting ready for the next wave, knowing, absolutely confidently knowing that it is coming and I will have what I need on hand to, at a minimum, get started.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing worse than inspiration striking and you go into the studio and it's like, I'm all out of blue paint and I was going to
Oh
paint
my God,
skies
it's
today.
so funny you
Like,
just said blue paint because that quite literally was the example I was going to say. I'm out of blue paint because that, like, you have an idea and I have 52 freaking colors in here and that's the one thing I'm missing.
that's how it
Yep.
works. Yeah. If you're not,
Yes,
if you're not prepared.
correct.
Um, but I do think there's a period before you even paddle back out where you're just flamed out on the beach, where you're like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa, that wave took a lot out of me. I just need to flop down for a minute and look at the sky
Totally.
or whatever. And I think, you mentioned the podcast. Yes, I will come back to the podcast in July, but June
Hmm.
is a complete
Yes.
month off from the show. And it's
Yeah.
funny because I can feel the finishing energy drain out of me
Yes.
as
Yep.
once we get to about March. By the time we get to March with the podcast, I'm over it. I am done.
Mm-hmm.
I am
Mm-hmm.
the burnout is setting in, and that's why I do a
Yep.
hiatus, because if I had to
Yes.
do this constantly year round, year after year with no break, the
Mm-hmm.
podcast would have ended
Yes.
years ago. Like I just wouldn't have made
Yes.
it. I
Yep.
need the break to just have a break. Like
Yeah.
we do need that.
Yes,
And
and it just, I mean, at my paying job, they give you vacation, and
yes,
vacation is rest and break from the pattern, from the everyday, from the thing. It doesn't mean you stop doing other things. Like you're not,
yes.
I mean, even still, you could flake out on a beach for a week. You could lay in the backyard and do whatever. But like you still need vacation. We all need it. Bears hibernate. Like you
We
need to chill out.
I did an episode way back on burnout and recognizing the signs and how to what you need to do when you're starting to feel is I put a link to those in the show notes because I can't remember the episode number off the top of my head. But one of the things I do in that episode is I compare what we do to a professional athlete because I think it's
Mm,
one of the easiest ways for people to understand. When you have a professional athlete, their entire earning potential is wrapped up in their physical and mental health. Okay.
yeah.
If their body is not performing in tip top shape, both physically and mentally, they can't earn their living. Their earning
Yeah.
potential is threatened. And
Hmm.
as self employed, and particularly as creatives, because a lot of what we do is very physical, um,
Yes.
this is the same for us. Our entire business is wrapped up in our body, right? If
Hmm.
we are not able to perform because we get sick or we're burnt out or we're mentally just not able to check in the way that we normally would, that impacts our ability to earn. And I think
Hmm.
it's so interesting because professional sports, every single professional sport that you can think of, and if there is one out there that doesn't do this, let me know because I couldn't think of one.
Mm,
All of them have an end of season where they
totally.
stop. Okay, we're in the middle
Yes.
of hockey playoffs right now. These guys who are playing and women, because the women have their first playoffs this year
Yeah.
too.
Yep.
Very cool. So these athletes are in the finishing energy of their season, right? They are battered, they are bruised, they are tired, but the
Hmm.
prize is there and they are going to do whatever they can to get that prize
Yes.
because they know at the end
There's
there's
rest.
rest. Like
Yeah.
they are going to take a time off and there will be those
Yes.
first few weeks where I don't know, maybe they sit around and eat popcorn in their pajamas on the
Oh,
couch,
yum. Yep.
right?
Yep.
But as the off season progresses, they'll get back into doing light workouts. And then as they get
Hmm.
closer to training camp or whatever it is, they'll start getting really serious about getting back into
Yep.
shape. And they know their body needs that rest. It's completely worn out and frazzled. And if they
Totally.
had to play another season that started the next week, there'd be injuries, there would be burnouts, it would be a
Yeah.
disaster, right? And it
Yeah.
wouldn't be enjoyable for the
Exactly.
fans to watch that because their favorite players would be off injured and the play wouldn't be as good because everybody's
Hmm.
just worn out. So, and all sports do this. Like if you think about it, they
Yes.
all have their end of season. Some end a little sooner than others, depending how far they go in a
Yep.
playoff. But
Yep.
so nobody questions this. So why do we question the idea
Yeah.
of taking a season ending break as
Yep.
self-employed creatives? Like I'm throwing that question
Absolutely.
out
And
to everyone.
interesting.
Why do we
Exactly. And interestingly, and I really, when you just said training camp, they all do a training camp.
Mhm.
And that is even an interesting way to approach a new season is a
Yeah, I
training
had that
camp
at the
and to
10th.
kind of give yourself
You're gearing back up to get
you're
in.
gearing back up. Exactly. And so it's not, and that's almost permission to have a to wind back into it, almost ease your way into it
Yeah.
with routine building opportunities, with setting things up, right? Like making
Yeah.
sure your planner's in place, making sure all of your paints are in fact there. I mean, I would suggest having all of that in place before training camp, but to me, that
Well,
training
yeah, the
camp is
equipment
an
manager,
analogy. Yeah,
the
exactly. Since
equipment manager
equipment manager.
probably gets a few weeks
Yeah.
off and then they're back in there and they're kind of like looking at what needs
Yeah,
to be replaced and who
exactly.
went, so that kind of thing. The
Yeah.
front office is back at work. They're strategizing for the
Yep.
next season or the in our terms the next
Yes.
project or whatever it's going to
Yep.
be. So it's not like you just disappear, although I mean you but there's an easier pace to it. Like you're in your studio every
Totally.
weekend, you're inventorying your paints. Like it's not like there's no great pressure or rush. You can have the music on, you're just doing your thing, you
Totally.
listening to audiobooks, whatever floats your boat, right?
Yep. And
And
in
it's
fact, I have been thinking about combining that with an open house. So, like, how can I
cool.
slice and dice this time? And so, if I'm just going to be hanging out in my studio listening to music, organizing my paint, why don't I tell people I'm going to be there, slap a sign outside, and use it as an opportunity to connect with people IRL and possibly sell some stuff while I'm doing other things when I know for sure that I'm going to be there. That's
Yeah.
just in terms of like, how can I use that opportunity to, anyway, there's just
Yeah.
rest can be used still productively. I think
I
that's the thing.
yes, you make a really good point, and it just made me think, some of us, I'm the introvert, you're the extrovert. So
Mhm.
understanding how your energy is brought back, it refills itself. If you're an introvert,
Yeah.
you energize by being away from people. If you're an extrovert, you energize by being around people. And for someone like you who's extroverted, having an open house is a great way to bring people into your life while you're in this period of waiting for the next wave and get that like it's probably very energizing for you to have those people
Totally.
coming in and talking to them and whereas for someone like me I'd be like get out, get out, get out, get out. You can come back later. when my cup is filled back out,
Yeah, that's
So,
too funny.
but which kind of person are you? This is for the listeners,
Hmm.
ask yourself, which kind of person are you? And if you
Hmm.
know that you are the type of person that needs people around you to energize, then make steps to
Yeah, find
be
them.
around people. And if you
Hmm.
know you're the type of person who needs to be away from people, again, make steps to make that happen. And I think that kind of brings us to an interesting point is what is rest,
Hmm.
right? Because I think it's different for everyone. And one of the things I was really thinking about is like the vacation, right?
Yeah.
The vacation. We're going on a vacation. And I am willing to bet for some of you out there listening, the thought of planning a family vacation is
Oh,
exhausting.
yeah.
Because is a vacation rest if like for
Hmm.
me a vacation is not rest. It's not. And I'm not planning a vacation for lots of people. A vacation is an adventure for me and it's
Yeah.
fun and I love doing them and I love going on them, but it's not restful because I'm the type of person when I'm on vacation I'm like go go go. We got to see all the things, we got to do the stuff.
Hmm.
I'm not good at sitting on a beach with a book.
Yeah, I'm good at
Even
that. For a week maximum. By day
yes.
7, I'm like, I'm ready to go home. Let's move. Let's get this party going again. Yeah.
So I think you need to kind of ask yourself, like, what is it that is restful to me?
Hmm.
And how do I go about getting that? And I think depending where you are in your life, because different seasons, you know, finding that ability to have rest, whatever that is for you, can be really hard. Um,
Hmm.
because it might not be the family vacation where you are trying to figure out what all the kids are going to wear and wrangle everybody's passports and documentation and keeping your eye on making sure
Yeah.
nobody goes running off in weird directions in an airport and all that stuff. That can be really stressed. That's stressful for a lot of people. Like when I
Yes.
I look back to my childhood, I don't think my mom really enjoyed any of our family vacations.
Oh no. It's so funny. Look, I've been looking at old photos, funny enough, and literally I'm like, my mother looked so upset.
Frazzled
Yeah.
would be a good word.
Frazzled, completely frazzled. And like, yeah, the side eye at my stepdad is like in
Yeah.
some of the photos, like, yeah, you made me do this.
And then,
Yeah.
for others of us, it may be very difficult to make time to remove yourself from your life,
Hmm.
like
Yes.
if you're a caregiver or financially you just can't afford to go on a
Hmm.
vacation. Like there's so
Exactly.
it's a privilege to be able to get on an airplane and remove yourself from whatever's going
Even
on.
just an Airbnb away for the weekend
Yeah.
is a real treat, and being able to just step away because trying to step away when you're in the environment is hard for sure.
Mhm.
Like if you did a staycation at home, you're probably still pulling out your sketch pad. You're probably still doing things that if you were on a hiking trip in Indonesia, might not pull out because you were too busy doing other things. I don't know. Or you'd switch. I think that's the thing. I think for me, rest is switching. And
Mm.
so it's not that I'm still being creative. I'm just doing it different ways. Like I've been trying so many different new recipes. I have been experimenting so widely with things that have been such epic failures. I have not chronicled any of them. I just have been doing them and loving the experimenting process, and the result has been absolute garbage. But the process and the learning along the way has been amazing. And so it's very restful in that I'm not producing, but I'm still flexing my creative muscles, if
Yeah.
that makes,
Mhm.
yeah. And I think
Mhm.
for me, that's still rest, like making stuff that has been complete failure after complete failure, but still having so much fun trying. Uh, it's like I'm trying to stand up on my board a different way, waiting for the wave. And
Mhm.
do you know what I mean? And so I'm playing with new footwork. I'm playing with new surfboard wax. I'm trying the things waiting for. And I'm loving the waiting. Like the waiting is really fun. And instead of just sitting on my board waiting, which if that's what you need to do, do you know what I mean? Like, but for
Yeah,
me,
because
that's
I
that's not
need the
a
moments of sitting on the board waiting.
right.
And this
And
is
I have those, but not it's few and far between.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
I haven't I used to go to the west coast of Vancouver Island every
Mhm.
November, storm season, because the biggest project of my year would wrap up at the end of October, and I'd be absolutely exhausted. And so I would pack my all my art stuff into my car. I'd pack my dog into my car, and we would go to the west coast of the island for 2 weeks,
Mhm.
and just me and my dog, like no people. And storm season was very intentional. I mean, it happened to align with the best time of the year for me where I
Mhm.
needed the
Mhm.
break, but also there's nobody there during storm season.
Yes, and you took some epic photos. Like that was I
It was
whenever I think of those, I think of the photography that you did. Yeah.
um it was it is such a great place to take photos. It really is, if
Mm.
that's your thing. But it was perfect because we would get up early and go walk the beach, the place where I would get it was a resort on the beach, but I would get a private cabin, a dog-friendly cabin. So I would have a
Yeah.
lot of space to myself with nobody in it except me and my dog.
Oh,
And it had it had a kitchen and everything, so I could cook. I didn't have to go
perfect.
anywhere if I didn't want to. And so we would spend the morning on the beach. The beach it wasn't a private beach, it was a public beach, but you had to go through private areas to get to it. So it was a pretty quiet beach. It was just surfers. That's all. It would be surfers and
Hmm.
other people at the two resorts. And there was two private properties further down that had beach access. And then the next sort of beach was Pacific Rim National Park. So it's a national
Mm.
park. It's not
Yep.
anyway. So it would just be we would spend the morning hiking, we'd come back, we'd have a bite to eat, and then we'd go back out for another hike or something somewhere. Because for me, being outdoors and moving um, is a big part in restorative treatment for
Yes.
me. I mean,
Yes.
it's meditative. All of this is meditative.
Yeah.
It's just me and my
Yes.
brain, right?
Hmm.
And then we would come back, and usually storm season, it rains all the time. So you're out in your rain gear, and the hotel even provides rain ponchos, which people
Yeah.
use. And so you're out there, and then because it was November, it would be dark by 4 o'clock. So we'd be back in the
Right.
cabin by 4. And I would just sit there and I would do like what I call them rainbow squares, but it's just
Hmm.
a kind of artwork that I do that is very meditative. And
Hmm.
basically, I just gave myself permission to not think for two
Yeah.
weeks. And it would be by the end, I would say about 8 or 9 days in, my brain would start ticking like, whoa, it would just start going into overdrive. Sorry, I didn't mean to snap my fingers on the microphone, but it would just start going into overdrive with all the different ideas that were just churning in my head. And by the end of the 2 weeks, I would just be chomping at the bit to get going. So,
Oh God, yeah.
yeah.
That's me. And that in terms of like turning my brain off. Turning my brain off is doing other things, hiking, walking. And so
Yeah.
even cleaning out my pantry and like wiping, cleaning, like that
It's those
satisfies my
meditative activities, right? You're
yeah,
still moving. And I think movement is very restful in some
yeah,
ways. Um, because there's a flow that happens when
totally.
I'm not saying go out and do exercise unless you really enjoy that,
Yeah,
but it's just something about the movements. There's something about cleaning, like you said. For some people, it's
yeah,
baking, like the kneading bread
yeah.
and working
I'd
with
see that.
dough and
Yep.
all of those kinds of things. Anything where you're using your hands, like for other people
Hmm.
that might be doing needlework or knitting.
Knitting,
It's
yeah.
just a way for me, how it works is my brain starts processing all the things that I had to put into the
Hmm.
background while I was just trying to get through to the end of the
Yeah.
project. Now my brain can start processing while my hands are busy.
Hmm.
And it works really well for me. Now, I haven't been able to take a vacation since 2018 like that.
Mm.
I haven't been able to, I'm not in a position where I can be gone for more than 24 hours
Hmm.
from my home at the
Hmm.
moment. So it has been interesting trying to figure out how to work rest in
Yes.
without being able to leave. And I'm going to be very honest, it's been very challenging to figure this
Mm.
out.
Yeah,
And
I can
I,
imagine.
yeah, I know I'm not the only person in this
Oh,
position.
of course not. No, yeah.
So, how do we incorporate rest on the daily? Um,
Hmm.
or when we're in situations where we can't physically remove ourselves to go
Yeah.
somewhere else, or we can't physically remove the people that we
Hmm.
that we habitate with. Um,
Yep. Oh, exactly.
for whatever reason, whether it's, you're a caregiver or you've got children, or you're not in a position to have somebody come in and help out while you sneak
Hmm.
off for a few days. So how do we lean into rest when it's hard to make that happen? I think that's
Yeah.
something I'm finding it very challenging. I am at a
Hmm.
point where I need to remove myself for a few weeks, but I don't have a mechanism to make that happen right now.
Right.
Um, so I am trying to, for gardening is a good way for me. I've spent a
Yeah.
ton of time in my garden the last few months as
Hmm.
the weather has gotten better. There's something about working with the earth and
Hmm.
just being outdoors and moving.
Hmm.
It's been really interesting since my dog passed away last
Mm.
fall. And I don't know if you feel this way because you lost Eddie shortly before I lost Sam.
Mm.
But even gardening, which has always been my solace, I guess, or my way to recharge, um,
Yep.
I have found this year it actually makes me incredibly anxious to be in my
Mm.
garden in the evening without my dog. It's very
Mm.
weird. I've
Mm.
been really struggling with that because gardening is the thing that has always calmed me at the end of a busy
Hmm.
day. And
Hmm.
now I just find myself very anxious because my dog's not there. Like I'm more anxious the last 2 months than I was back in January and February,
Hmm.
where, you're indoors and it's still dark out
Interesting.
quite late, early and things like
Hmm.
that. So, but yeah, I wasn't expecting to feel this
Hmm.
way.
Hmm.
So it's been really interesting because now gardening isn't bringing me, like, I'm still
Yeah.
enjoying it, and I'm
Yeah.
fine during the daytime, like on the weekends if I go out,
Yep.
midday and I work out there, totally fine. It's that
Yep.
twilight golden hour
Yes.
evening
Yes.
where I just find myself really so I was out mowing the lawn at 7 o'clock, and the anxiety that enveloped me while I was mowing the lawn
Hmm.
was wild. I was just like, what is this? Because mowing the lawn is another thing that I actually
Yeah.
really enjoy doing.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that actually, because I mowed the lawn for the first time literally last week. And as I was doing it, like Eddie wasn't here last summer either.
Mm.
But again, this summer, mowing the lawn, I literally stopped because something on the lawn, I thought it was poop. And I was like, whoop, can't mow over that because, sends it everywhere.
Mhm.
And anyway, it was quite the moment in the lawn. Like it really, I felt very, yeah, like there's moments, and I think it's grief, and it's
It
just trying to
totally
figure out
is.
how to
It
how to
totally is.
process that.
Yeah. I
Yeah. And
know
I think
that's what it is.
interestingly, grief and rest, I think go hand in hand
Mm.
in terms of not that grief is rest, but that when you're processing grief and you're trying to seek rest, both things require you to fundamentally shift routines. I think that's
Yeah, I think you're
because
right.
if you don't flip something on its head, I think it's too overwhelming. So I don't like I still go for walks. I do not walk in the places that Eddie and I walked. I just don't.
Yeah.
I can't. And so that's a flipping of the routine out of necessity, but there's also, you know, one of the things, like, I would regularly, particularly when Eddie couldn't get up the stairs anymore, I would make a point of going downstairs from my studio at least every hour.
Mhm.
And then one of the things that I very quickly did was told myself I needed to actually be up here for 3 hours at a minimum. And so I gave myself, like, all right, you take up your glass of water and a bottle of water to refill your glass of water. You've got fresh water for your paintbrushes. You've just taken a pee. You can go upstairs for 3 hours. turn music on, go, and give yourself permission to break the habit that was that other habit was out of necessity. Now I can break it and do something because
Yeah.
just because I can. And I
Yes.
think that that is the very same thing with rest, is that breaking that habit either out of necessity or because you can give yourself permission to do that. I think they're both very healthy, very healthy things and help in the processing of whatever it is, whether it's processing and waiting for the next wave in the rest phase or whether you're processing grief. You need to take that you need to take that time. Like I'm always
Yeah.
surprised by people who go literally like they say goodbye to their dog and the next day they go out and get a dog and I'm like, what? How do you what? Like you need to process that grief. And I'm not condemning anybody for doing that because good on you that you have that love in your heart. But to me, I just there I need that time to process that grief.
Yeah, you hit on a bunch of very interesting things there. I definitely need time to. I thought I would be ready for another dog this spring, but I'm not.
Mm-mm.
I
No.
I got my garden refenced in March,
Hmm.
because I was like, then I can get a new dog once the fence
Yep.
is all redone and everything. And I realized halfway through while the fencing crew was here, I was like, I'm not ready for this. But
Yeah.
at least now it's like training camp, right? At least now the
Yes,
yard is
exactly.
ready. So when
Yes.
the right dog comes along, and it will,
Yep. Yep.
I know it will, um, I, I am ready to bring it home.
Yes,
So there
exactly.
is that, yes, definitely the grief component, but you make some really interesting points there in like breaking the habits, because I don't think we realize how easily we get into these habits. Like there's a lot of
Hmm.
things that I have noticed that the last 18 to 24 months of Sam's life is he became a senior dog, and this is what happens,
Yep.
and the same thing can happen with parents, and like there's like I just changed so much of
Yes.
my routine to better fit
Yes.
him,
Yes.
with no regrets. Like
Oh no,
that's
no, no,
one
no,
of the
no.
bonuses of being
Yes. Do it
self-employed is you
again
can,
for another
yeah,
decade.
100%,
Yes. Yes.
100%. But it's kind of realizing now that he's gone. And I think there is a period of where you're kind of like, it feels disloyal to change your habit
Mm-hmm.
immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that little battle going on in your head. But at the same time, it's just reminding myself that like you can do things different ways now,
Mm-hmm.
because he's not here to kind of dictate how, sounds so weird, like it's not like he dictated,
No,
but you know
no.
what I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
Like
Yes.
it was a conscious choice to make those decisions, but now I can make
Yes.
the conscious choice to do something different.
Correct. And that's a freedom to me that is a
Yes.
gift.
And I
Yes.
think where you were kind of going with this is that we get into these habits,
Mm-hmm.
take grief out of it, losing something. We get into
Yep.
these habits in our work where we don't even question why we're doing something a certain way, because it's just the habit or the rut, if you want to say, that we
Yes.
have fallen into. And
Yeah.
sometimes we just need to give ourselves permission to step back and say, but why am I doing it this way?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like,
So for instance, like palette choices, I always tool choices. I always reach for the same colors.
yes,
I always reach for the same paintbrush. And so, and this again, it's another lesson that I find I remind myself and all the time other people during chart, but break the pattern. So use your non-dominant hand, pick your least favorite brush and only use that one. Pick a limited palette, only paint with that palette. Try a new paint brand, try a new tool or technology. Like that is breaking a habit. And that to me is like that experimentation that I'm allowing myself right now is restful because sometimes it teaches me new things. Wow, that's a really pretty palette. I should reach for that more often. Or my palette's really awesome. I'm never breaking from my habit. Like I can learn both of those
yes,
things
yes, you can. And
through play, and the only way I learn is through trying the opposite.
yes, I think for me, that's actually more energizing than restful. But
Hmm.
I think if we're talking about like where you can fit rest in, especially on a
Mm,
daily basis, like I think you can take a look at those same habits and ask yourself, okay, well, like, why do I work in my studio from 9 to 5 every day? I'm
Yeah.
self-employed.
Yeah.
Um, like I could
I
work
can go
from
somewhere
7
else.
till 7 p.m. till 9 p.m. I could go
Yep.
work
Yep.
in the kitchen. I can take a break at 10 o'clock in the morning if it's
Yep.
what I need to do. Like
Yep.
sometimes we just have those days where you sit down and nothing's working. And
Hmm.
it's usually for me, I can't speak for everyone else, but for me, it's usually because I'm tired, I'm
Yeah.
cranky. It's because I need a rest. And
Hmm.
sometimes the best thing I can do for my day and my productivity is to literally shut my computer off at 9:30 in the morning and go for a walk. Whereas normally I would go for a walk at lunchtime or after
Hmm.
dinner when it's traditional free time, right? But
Yes.
why am I
Yep.
doing that? I am the
Yep.
boss. If
Hmm.
I need to take a break at 9:30 and go for a walk or go to the gym or go read a magazine on the deck with a cup of coffee, I can do that if it's going to make the rest of my day more productive, which almost invariably it does,
Yes.
because I just listened to my body and was like, this isn't working. And
Yeah.
sometimes we don't even see it. Sometimes it's a friend who says, hey, it's not working for you today. Just shut it off and go do
Yeah.
something else, because that's what we need to do. So I
Totally.
think when you get into that whole habit breaking, yeah, if you're not feeling it, ask yourself why and what you can do to
Yeah.
change it. And
Yes.
you
And
don't
even
have
and even if your habits are working for you, if you're in a period of rest, you don't want to stick, maybe don't stick with those like artistic creative business process habits, but you still, so for instance, if you're at home, you're not leaving, it's a staycation. If that room is still there and it's calling to you because it's there and you can't help yourself and it is your escape from the other people in the house, but you still need to rest from what you're typically producing, use that as an opportunity to play and experiment and break from habit so that it is a rest from the everyday. It might not be restful, but it's still a break. We were on
Mhm.
a break. It's still yes. And like Frankie says, relax. But it's like it's, and I think honestly, a creative person, like, does your brain ever really stop working? No. Are there always ideas and opportunity? Like, I don't think a creative person, at least I hope, when, yeah, like when something is miraculous and presents itself, I think we're all ready to witness it. And so I don't think any of us ever really turn off. And that's why ideas come from the craziest places. People will say,
Yes,
I
yes.
was folding the laundry and the way the sock fell and the sunlight hit it, boom. And like, boom, the song was written. Boom, the painting was done. Boom, I got my camera. Boom. Like all
Yeah.
of those things could have come from that one incident,
And this,
you
I think,
know?
is why it's so important to put our phones down sometimes. Some of my
Yeah.
best ideas, I don't take transit much anymore, but I used to travel a lot for work. And so I took transit a lot in whatever city I was in. Like I know the Toronto transit system better than I know the Vancouver
Yeah.
transit system because I spent so much time in Toronto for work. Um, and it would be so interesting. My business partner and I would be on like the streetcar or something. He would be on his phone. And I am the type of person who looks out the window. Like I'm
Yeah,
just
me
always, I
too.
love looking out the window.
Yep. Yes.
Um,
And
and
looking at the people looking out the windows, like
yeah,
love it
looking at the
all. Yep.
people, looking at what's going on out the window,
Yep.
looking at the storefronts, like that's where I get some of my best ideas because I'm in this place where it's like forced, I can't go anywhere. I'm not the
Hmm.
driver.
Yes.
I need to be on this vehicle to get from A to B.
Yep.
So I could be on my phone. And sometimes you are on your phone, like sometimes you're
Sure.
reading
Out of
a book or
necessity. Yeah.
whatever, right? But sometimes the best thing you can do is same with being a passenger in a car on a road trip and
Yeah.
just staring out
Yes.
the window or
Yeah.
like you said, doing laundry and the light in the sock. Laundry for me is another very meditative activity that I actually really enjoy.
Hmm.
I like the process of folding things. There's just something very methodical about it that
Yes.
my brain goes into that different place where it's kind of going, I'm just floating
Yes.
around out here.
Yes.
Arranging
Honestly, when
because
I hang it in the on the line in the summertime, so like it's just getting to that weather where
I
I did
hung
it just
laundry on the
for
line
the
on
first time.
Monday. Yes,
And like
smells so good.
hanging, first off, the smell is amazing. But
Yes.
secondly, I delight in how I arrange it. It's not just what comes out of the basket and what goes up. I arrange it. And it's funny because I didn't realize I was doing it until a neighbor was like, look at that line's like a little color coded there. And I was like, what, huh? But I arrange it in a way that is pleasing to my eye. Like everything is a little opportunity to just have a little fun.
Hmm.
And like, anyway, so that
Yeah.
when you look out at the laundry, I don't know, it just makes me
No, I get
happy.
it. I get it. I
Yeah.
organize everything into rainbows. Everything.
Oh, oh my
M&Ms,
God.
laundry.
One of the girls at work organized the supply cupboard the other day, like a couple weeks ago, so first off, everything is in perfect bins, so you see everything. Then everything is labeled, but further to that, everything within each category is in rainbow order.
But
And I said to her one day, like literally, I said to her, I'm like, I just open the supply cupboard and just take a deep breath because I'm like, literally, I'm like, hey, we're okay. Because it's the most. And she literally, she was like, I was having a shit Friday. And I was like, what am I going to do on a shitty Friday afternoon? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to organize the supply cupboard. I'm going to make everybody else's day brighter and mine. And literally, I'm like, there you
okay,
go.
but see, there she was. She was having a lousy day. She wasn't
Yep.
getting anything accomplished that she was quote unquote supposed to be doing.
Supposed to be doing.
You know,
Yes.
and so she got up and she did something that for a lot of us would be very methodical and very like that
Yep.
getting you into that meditative state.
Yep.
Like I don't think we realize how many things there are out there that we can do that put us into that meditative zone if we just allow it
Totally.
to. Like if you go into the
Yes.
idea that folding laundry is the biggest pain in the ass, because
Mm-mm.
I know for a lot of people that's how they feel. That's how you're going to be grouchy and cranky and you're not going to get into that flow while you're
Totally.
folding the laundry. But if you just go
Yep.
into it with the idea that I got to fold laundry, so I'm just going to fold the laundry, you
Yes.
know, or I'm just going to
Yep.
wash the dishes because the
Yes.
dishes need to be washed. I don't enjoy
Yep.
it, but they have to be done. So
Yep.
I'm just going to be in the moment with washing the dishes.
Mm.
And maybe that's part of what rest is being in the moment of these
Yep.
mundane
Mm.
things
Do you
that
want
we
to hear
don't like
do you want
doing.
to hear a weird folding the laundry confession? This podcast has taken a turn. Um, when I fold the laundry, I love first off pulling it out of the dryer when it's warm is delightful. Um, but Brian has, we all have our house sweatpants anyway, and whenever they get washed, which is quite regularly because they get worn basically every day after work, when they come out of the dryer warm, I put them over my shoulder and I tie them around my neck like a little Superman cape. And it's like this warm, little comforting Superman cape hug while I fold the rest of the laundry. Do, do,
Kramer
do.
on
Yep.
Seinfeld.
Yep.
That was the whole episode on getting
Yeah. And like
warm
putting it in the
clothes.
pizza oven. Exactly. Anyway, I absolutely love it. And then I wait until it's cooled down and then I take it off and I fold the sweatpants and they go wherever they need to go. But
Laundry,
yeah.
I totally get what you're talking about. Laundry day is like a very enjoyable day for me. I
Mm-hmm.
always do laundry. I would say 9 times out of 10, I do it on a Sunday.
Oh,
And in the summer, it's not as enjoyable because I I wash it and then I hang it outside. But in
yeah.
the winter, I wash it and I put it in the dryer.
Mm.
And I also move from upstairs in my studio to
Ah, yes,
downstairs to the
downstairs.
rec room,
Right.
which is right next to the laundry room. And the rec room has this massive window that gets a ton of light, and it's got
Hmm.
floor to ceiling bookshelves full of books. And there's just something about that room that when I go work
Yeah.
in it, it's a completely different vibe. And it's the sound of the washing machine and the sound of the dryer are very
Yes.
soothing to me. If I wasn't
Yes.
actually doing something, I would fall asleep to them.
Yep. Yep.
And so while I'm waiting for the laundry to, finish the washer, the dryer coming out, instead of running up and
Hmm.
down the stairs, I just take something downstairs to work on. And so suddenly I'm working in this different environment. I've got these
Yes.
lovely soothing sounds. And like you said, you take stuff out of the dryer and it's got that smell that dryer clothes
Yep.
have, and it's
Yep.
warm and it's cozy. And I'll fold it on a chair in the rec room and then carry on with whatever I was working on. But there's something about It's very soothing to me. It's very restful. And there's
Hmm.
something about working in a different
Different
space in
environment.
my house,
Yep.
a space that I really like. Um, it's one of my favorite days. People think I'm crazy when I say this, but I really enjoy laundry day.
No, I totally get it. And it's interesting because even within, like, it's a regular routine, but for that regular routine, it's a break in routine.
Yes. And it's
And
a
so,
chore that has to be done. So why
yeah,
not
why not? Exactly. And I think
make the
that
most of it?
I think in that, even in just in terms of a creative expression, like finding little moments to do creative expression, whether it's putting the laundry away, noticing new smells,
Yeah.
paying attention to the world around you. I think all of that is restful. And I think giving yourself the, the opportunity to just, there's a scene in one of our favorite movies called Four Last Songs. Great movie. Stanley Tucci, Reese Ifans, Hugh Bonneville, and
Downton Abbey
Jenna
3
Malone.
is in production.
Oh, I know.
Anyways, sorry.
Anyway, it's a wonderful, wonderful movie. Anyway, and one of the characters in the movie is sort of a very flighty character, but she picks up a handful of sand and smells it. And this person looks at her like, fuck are you on? Like that you're smelling sand. And she's like, just take a moment, smell this, like smell the trees around you. And she says it in French, so of course it sounds way more beautiful.
Mhm.
But the way she says it, and it is so true. Like just take a deep breath, and like those moments of rest can be so brief. But if you just, it's like flipping something on its head or spending an extra 5 minutes
Mhm.
at the canvas before you start, or just switching the palette, or I don't know, painting in a new location, trying writing instead of photography. Like there's so many different ways you can let it rest, but still be creative, still let your brain chew, not stop doing. I think a lot of people have trouble like truly, truly stopping. I do.
Yeah.
And
It's very hard for all of us, I think.
yeah. And so
Um,
flipping it is, I think to me, the easiest way
I
to,
think you can also
to
just
almost
take a break
stop.
from being creative. You don't need to be
Yes.
creative while you rest. If you
No.
just need to lie on the couch and stare at the ceiling,
Yeah.
that's okay. Like your
Oh, yeah.
brain doesn't have to be,
Oh, yeah.
like there's so, I think
I've rewatched True Blood recently, the entire series. Oh, yeah.
there are so many different ways to to find rest. And I think maybe that's what this is.
Yeah.
If you're going to take anything away from this episode, I think probably the key things are, first of all, to ask yourself, are you getting rest? Where is it?
Hmm.
What does it look like? Like actually think about where am I getting my rest? And if you're not getting any, you need to think about why that is.
Yeah.
And there's many reasons why it could be. It could be that you're overwhelmed with work, or you've got a lot of deadlines, or you need the money, or you've got four kids at home and
Hmm.
you're just, they're all under the age of 10.
Hmm.
I don't know. You're just trying to survive to get
Yeah.
to the end of the day. There could be so many reasons for it. But I think we need to think about like where can we insert rest into our day,
Hmm.
and it could
Hmm.
be for 5 minutes, it could be for half an hour. If you're lucky enough, maybe you get to go away for 2 weeks with nobody else with you.
Hmm.
Um, but figure out where you can insert that rest and think about, like, we just talked about like how a lot of the chores we need to do are very meditative. Like ask
Hmm.
yourself, instead of going into doing a specific chore with irritation, like if you just go into it as a way to
Hmm.
just let your brain go somewhere else. I mean, you hear people talk about rage baking or rage cleaning and stuff because they do it because it's a physical activity that lets them release whatever
Yeah.
is in them, while
Hmm.
still being productive. So maybe maybe you don't need to rage bake or rage laundry or any of that,
Yeah.
but maybe it's rest bake or rest laundry. It's your
Yes.
way of letting your brain have its 10 minutes
Hmm.
to just float away without
Yes.
you interfering with
Yeah.
it.
And I think too, as you're talking, I think a lot of times we think about rest as like sleep or stop.
Well, that
And
is
for
important
me,
too. You do need
I think
sleep.
of it, of course,
Yes.
but rest is restoration.
Mm.
Rest is so much, it's restoring. It's And so how do you fill your cup back up? How do you change your perspective? And so telling myself doing laundry is awesome instead of telling myself doing laundry is shit might be part of that restoration or filling my cup up simply by changing my perspective, right?
Yeah. Um, I think that's one thing you should do. I think put your phone down for set
Mm,
periods of time. I was just talking about this in my mastermind group. We were talking about gardening actually, and I had mentioned that I was feeling anxious, and one of the women said, "Oh, try not having your headphones in when you're in the garden." And I said, "Well, actually, my phone doesn't come outside with me. My
yeah.
phone, when I'm in the garden, my phone is in the house."
Hmm.
So like, where are those moments where you could put your phone down
Yeah.
without having, if you're, if the moment there's a lull, your first instinct is to pick up your phone, try to put it back down and let yourself be in
Hmm.
the lull,
Yes.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, I think our phones are, if we don't manage them carefully, I think they can be so hard on our mental health. Um,
And they
I've
don't
become,
allow, I think they don't let for restoration. I think
no,
there's too much, and people will say it's inspiration, but I think it's a lot of competition and not, we don't see it as competition, but we do see it as competition. We compare ourselves to other
yeah.
people. Look at
If you're on
them.
on
They're
social media and stuff, yeah, for sure.
exactly.
It's,
I
but there's also
I
all
just
the neurological stuff. There's being on our
yeah.
phone fires a lot of different parts of our brain that are not restorative. Um,
Yeah.
so I do think it's important to put the phone down for 10 minutes
Hmm.
here or there. I've
Hmm.
gotten really strict with my phone behavior in the last 6 months. I have do not disturb on my phone from 9 till 3 during the day. So
Yeah.
the only person who can get through to me is my mom,
Right.
basically.
Right.
Because
Speaking of
um
which, I need to call my mother when we're done. Yeah.
and I don't get text messages, I don't get phone alerts, like nothing. Just so
Right.
that's for productivity, so I can
Yeah.
actually get my work done. But yeah, when I go out into places where I need to refill my cup, I try to leave my phone behind.
Mm.
And there's times where it's annoying. Like there's times where I'm in the garden and I'm like, oh, that's such a great, like that flower is such a beautiful, the
Yes.
colors and like I wish I could snap a photo of it. I don't have it. But you know what? It's my own garden. I can go back in the house later on and bring
I
my
know.
camera, blah, 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 blah. So
I
anyway,
know. And honestly, those moments, I literally, then I think to myself, what would I do with that photo? I'd just take the photo and then I'd do what with it? Probably nothing.
probably
So
delete it a year from now
instead,
after never looking at
exactly.
it.
So instead, spend 5 minutes and just actually enjoy the
Yes.
thing.
So
And yeah.
if last weekend, the Northern Lights were visible
Mm,
pretty much anywhere in Canada that you were.
yeah. I was in
And
bed. Yeah.
um, and it was so interesting. Here in Vancouver, we never get to see the Northern Lights. Like this was a very monumental thing.
Mm,
And um, people started posting their pictures around 11 p.m. at night. And I was like looking at the pictures because I had looked out the window multiple times and had seen nothing. And
hmm.
these pictures were like, wow, like what are they seeing? And I was going out there and I'm like, I'm not seeing anything. And then people slowly started to admit, oh, you can only see it when you hold your phone camera up to the sky in night mode. And then it's, I guess, kind of a long exposure type of thing.
Right.
And so suddenly then the colors pop. And so I went outside, and once I held my phone up and I could see them, and then I realized, okay, those wispy things I was looking at, that's the Northern Lights. It wasn't very
Right.
spectacular to the naked eye at all. And so I was saying to a friend a few days later, like it was really cool. Don't get me wrong. I'm so glad I went out and looked, and it was awesome. And once you
Hmm.
could identify them, you could see them moving. But I said, it's still a bucket list because I want to go item for me because I want to go somewhere where I can look up the sky and not have to look through my damn phone to
Yeah.
see this incredible
Yes.
thing. Like I just want to
Yes.
be in the moment without my phone there.
Correct.
So
Because I can look through my phone and see Pokemon. So, uh,
it's very
in
true.
terms
You
of
can.
reality, right? And no, I'm
But
totally with you. And in terms of rest, sleep is my favorite pastime. And the
yes.
memes the next day after the Northern Lights were hysterical because it had literally, I saw a meme, it was basically like the entire world leaning out their window.
Yeah.
And then on the other half of the screen was it said me, and it was just this man snuggled in bed. And that was entirely me. Brian and I were asleep in bed probably by like 8:45 that night because we were pooped from life and all of the things. And that was like, I remember saying the Northern Lights are tonight. And I was like, yeah, but I really need to sleep. And so we prioritized that. And that's what we did. And I don't regret a thing.
Well, the next night they were also supposed to be visible, and a lot of people who had not stayed up the night before stayed up
Mm,
to try and see them. And it was really interesting because I went out like I am a a night
mm.
person. It's very rare I'm in bed before midnight. And it's very rare that I'm up before 8 a.m. So that's just
Oh,
my
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
my routine. But yeah, I went out and there was nothing going on. And I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to sit here for 2 hours holding my phone up to the
No,
sky. I
no.
saw them last night and and the next time I see the Northern Lights, it's going to be without my phone. Um, so yeah, I went to bed too, but
That's too
it,
funny.
but that's my point is that we just, we need to take a break from our devices, I think. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes when it comes to rest, we just need to be a lot more honest with ourselves about whether we're making time for it, whether we're getting rest,
Hmm.
and how we can incorporate rest into our day, even if it's for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I think we can all probably figure out a way to get 5 minutes. Um, but yeah, and maybe it is looking at how you can break routines or approach things
Hmm.
differently,
Hmm.
all of those different things. So hopefully, as we head into the summer, I know we often talk about winter being a season of hibernation and rest. I'm actually
Hmm.
incredibly productive in the winter, but summer
Hmm. Yeah.
is when I am dying to, like, my creative energy goes out the window and I just want to like be outside and not thinking,
Yeah.
like smelling the flowers.
Yeah.
Find it very hard to do client work in the summer. So, but that's another
Hmm.
thing about being a working creative is that's why the podcast goes on hiatus for the summer, because that is one less thing I have to do in the summer. And I
Yeah.
rejig when I work during the summer. In the summer, I do get up early because it's light at 4:30 in the morning
Yeah.
here. And so I'm usually up by 6 o'clock and I will work in my studio instead of working from 9 till 5. I'll work from 6 till 1
Yep.
because by 1 o'clock it's too hot. And so you can change up your routine um, to help better
Yep.
suit how your personal flows go.
Hmm.
So, yeah, is there anything else we were going to talk about here, or did we get it all? I think we got.
I think we got it all. I mean, I think it's just it's a check in with yourself. I think that's the key.
Yeah,
And like, what is your definition of rest? What does that look like for you? And how can you fit it in big, small, medium, large?
yeah,
A- And and then also I would say, how does that fuel your creative process? Like, how
yeah.
does it help restore you? How does it help fill you up? Whether that's with energy or artistic idea or both, you know?
And I think one thing we didn't mention, but that is important, is it's okay to ask for rest
Yes.
time. I think
Yes.
a lot of us feel like we can't do that. We've got too many commitments.
Hmm.
We've got too many people we're looking after, too many errands we have to do. I think it's okay to every now and then stick your hand up and say, "Hey, I need
Yeah.
to rest. I
Yep.
need 24 hours. I need some help." It's okay
Hmm.
to ask for help. And uh, hopefully we're surrounded with people who are more than willing to step in and offer that help when
Yes.
we say that we
Yes.
need it. So, um, yeah. All right. Well, I think that's probably it for this week. And as I said, this is the last episode for season 5. So we are both off for the summer to go do other things and
Yep. Be
um,
magical.
be magical. And as I mentioned, if you are a regular listener to the show and you would like to give us some input into what you would love to see in season 6, please do, because I will, like I said, be taking June off. But once we get to July, I start to miss the show and I start getting ready to work on what we're going to be doing for the new season. So, um, yes, if you want to send me a note in June with some suggestions, I'd love to hear from you. And as I mentioned, if you want access to brand new episodes throughout the summer, you can head over to our Patreon. It's patreon.com/ and she looked up. And you can join us there for the summer and get access to those free, not free, to the premium subscriber episodes. Yes, so I will be around during the summer. Heather's around. You can find us both online. Heather is at Heather Travis. I
Mhm.
am at Fine Lime Designs, and you can reach the podcast at and she looked up or and she looked up at gmail.com. So Heather, thank you so much as always for being here for the whole season.
Of course.
It is the highlight of my recording calendar when I get to hang out with you.
Ditto.
So it's fun, and you're going to be back next season. So
Absolutely.
yes. So yeah, have a great summer, everyone. I hope that you find some time to fit some rest in and enjoy the summer and
Hmm.
stay safe. It's already wildfire season here in BC. It's
Mm.
not good. So stay safe and be careful, and we'll see you all in September. Thanks, everyone.
Toodaloo.
Thank you so much for joining us for the And She Looked Up Creative Hour. If you're looking for links or resources mentioned in this episode, you can find detailed show notes on our website at andshелookedup.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for our newsletter for more business tips, profiles of inspiring Canadian creative women, and so much more. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the show via your podcast app of choice so you never miss an episode. We always love to hear from you, so we'd love it if you'd leave us a review through iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Drop us a note via our website at andshелookedup.com or come say hi on Instagram at andshелookedup. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.